What are you doing here?
Where's that storybook review?
Nathan, it's been like 3 years. I don't think anybody really wants me to review these. I mean, like, come on, I can't review these. These raised me. I can't talk about these games. I mean, I'm impartial.
You know, man, when I handed you that contract, it said once a year, but it's been, like you said, 3. So you're doing it today.
What? What the hell?
So yeah, that's judgment you got there. You know how it works. It's you gotta finish the review before that flame goes out, or I guess you die.
That seems a little extreme just for a review.
Well, I have your soul either way, but
So do the review or die.
Good luck.
Guess I'm doing it.
Well, bye. Remember, finish the review. Soul's mine.
Thanks for nothing, Cole.
No such thing as fate for those who speed. A path at a time instead of just living it.
Alright, well let's get this review over with. Sonic and the Secret Rings and Sonic and the Black Knight are 2 games part of what's called the Storybook series. It was believed to be a trilogy at first, but only 2 games were released due to, well, poor reception and, well, probably didn't sell as many copies as they thought it would. Both probably deemed as failures in the long run, but not as much of a failure as Sonic 06 was.
Why you bullying?
One thing you gotta understand is that this was during a really, really dark time for Sega and Sonic Team. After the recent release of Sonic 06, Sega was having troubles really nailing Sonic games for a little bit after here, what's called the Dark Ages, from Shadow the Hedgehog all the way up to probably Sonic and the Black Knight. Some would even say it even goes into Colors, but I think Sonic and the Black Knight is where the Dark Ages really kind of end. They would only come back in the early 2010s, but that's for another video. They kind of were limited on what they could do. Not only for, you know, what was possible at the time due to the modern hardware of the current generation, being the Xbox 360, the PlayStation 3, and the Nintendo Wii. Now, let's start off with the first one. Sonic and the Secret Rings has a really interesting backstory, because it never intended to truly be Sonic and the Secret Rings. It intended to be a Wii port of Sonic 06. Halfway through its development, they realized that they could just split it off into another game. The biggest problem that Sonic 06 has was that the team developing that game was split into 2 sections. One section was working on Sonic 06, and we all know how that ended. And the other half of the team was working on a game called Sonic Wildfire at the time, which now is known as Sonic and the Secret Rings. Sonic and the Secret Rings follows Sonic the Hedgehog being visited by a genie from another world known as the Arabian Nights. She is the genie of the ring called Shara. Shara states to Sonic that her world is in danger and is being erased by someone called the Eraser Djinn. Shara pleads with Sonic to help her restore her world. Sonic, of course, agrees, being the amazing hero that he is, snarky in all comments like that, and the 2 set off an adventure in the Arabian Nights. The thing about these games specifically was the storybook aspect. The cutscenes playing out like pages of a storybook. And I have to say, where credit is due, the pages that the artists or animators who ever did these cutscenes did a really good job trying to replicate a storybook, you know, page, a panel, or something that you would probably see in a book, and I think they did a really good job. So hats off to them. And I have to say that, you know, as much as certain voice actors at the time get, you know, made fun of for their performances, I think that the performances in both Secret Rings and Black Knight are some of the better performances from Sonic cast at the time. I think it's some of the best stuff, especially Black Knight. Secret Rings, it's a little more iffy, but then again, it was still coming hot off the heels of 06. But I think where they really nailed it was Sonic's personality, in both games specifically.
You know, like Aladdin in the Magic Lamp?
Don't think I've read that.
What?
What's that all about? Talk about close shaves. Maybe you know where I can get my quill sharpened too? I'll have you smiling by the end of this. And that's not me ordering you as your master. That's a promise from me to you. Don't sweat it. Anyways, no adventure is fun if it's too easy, right? Shara! Please! Let me your power!
Your tale is finished, Eraser. Next time, try writing a better story.
It might even open the gates of hell!
Here is where I want to say that majority of the problems are going to be with these games. Because, in my opinion, I think we have a concept for a really great story. I think the voice acting is really up there. But the biggest thing that a game needs to have is fun gameplay. And unfortunately, Sonic and the Secret Rings' gameplay is anywhere far from fun. And the biggest problem with that is that Sonic and the Secret Rings severely gets handicapped by its motion controls on the Nintendo Wii. Don't get me wrong, I think the look of the game is actually pretty good. I think it's a pretty good looking game, especially for the time. But the problem is that Sonic is practically on rails the entire time. It's an auto runner. Sonic, you do not control his run speed, you do not control moving forward, pretty much. You can control moving back by tilting the Wii Remote back, but going forward, that's just automatic. You can tilt left and right with the Wii Remote, you can jump with some of the buttons, and then you can homing attack by shaking the Wii Remote while you're in a jump, but you have to be locked on. And among that, and among other things, I don't understand why they did this, but in order to actually have a fun experience playing this game, you need to unlock, and I'm not kidding, better controls. What do you mean I have to unlock better controls? This game should already have a set amount of controls. Why do I have to unlock better movement for the character that goes fast? Because when you start this game, this guy doesn't move worth a character that you want to go fast with. When you open up the game, he's barely running. You have to wait like almost 5 seconds in order for him to get up to top speed. I don't know if that's true or not, but it definitely feels like a long time. It's just so baffling that this is the route they chose to go with for the controls. Why would it be an auto runner? Why can't I control the character the way I want to control it? It's almost having as much control as you get in Sonic Dash. And all you do in that game is swipe up, swipe down, swipe left, swipe right. And somehow that feels more satisfying than playing Secret Rings. Now don't get me wrong, when you actually get Sonic upgraded and maxed out fully, I have to say, some of the stuff that you can do in Secret Rings is pretty cool. But again, it's the fact that you have to grind out the game. It's the fact that you have to level up to get these better controls for a character that is mainly all about movement, and you have to unlock better movement. So in this gameplay that you're going to see right now, this is with a stock Sonic. This is with no changes, this is no nothing. This is how he is moving normally. Now compare it to this. Which would you play? Be honest. Because if you want to play the version that is maxed out, you need to get up to like an insane amount of levels, and you have to pretty much play the game with a hand tied behind your back. It's kind of frustrating a little bit, but you know, one of the biggest things that these games make up for is the soundtracks. How's the music? Usually Sonic games have really good music, and well, I'm happy to say that me personally, I think The Secret Rings has one of the best soundtracks in the franchise. Just take a listen to some of these. know what some of you might be thinking. Well, it seems a little repetitive. And yeah, that's true, I guess, but any other Sonic game has repetitive music. It loops because, you know, you never know how long you're going to spend on a level. For somebody who is inexperienced, for someone who is experienced with playing these games. You know, like me personally, I can probably clear Sand Oasis, the first level in the game, within probably about less than 2 minutes. If I really tried, I probably could do it.
No such thing as a narrow through dreams. Hopes may burn but forever last to give in. So many things need a push or pull to begin. That was tight!
Now when it comes to the level design, it's kind of harder to talk about because again, we're really stuck on that just rail movement. We're going from point A to point B, which is, you know, most Sonic games. But again, there's no real freedom. There's no sense of like, oh, I can jump off to this path to go somewhere else. I can go over here, and then I can get to the goal faster. You get little moments of that, but a lot of that is just to find little collectibles. I mean, most of it isn't really, you know, finding a faster way to the goal. You still end up going the main road most of the game. And I think that's kind of where it all started for the more linear style gameplay that a lot of the games nowadays have really like sunk into. Games like Mania, where you're trying to find the fastest route, whether to go on the upper path, lower path, middle path, you know, a lot of that was, you know, refreshing and fun, and that's what you want in a Sonic game. But in a game like Secret Rings, Black Knight, or Generations, you are pretty much following one path the whole time. And that's been a big criticism of the franchise ever since after 06 came out, was that there was no freedom to find the fastest route. People still find ways, but with Secret Rings, it's kind of impossible because, again, you're stuck to that on-rail gameplay. The fastest way you're going to beat the level is to have a maxed out Sonic and just blast through as fast as you can. Again, maybe this is what they wanted to do, but again, Secret Rings never started out as being Secret Rings. It started out as a port for one of the worst games ever made. And, well, they might have made a worse game, depending on what you would say. But, again, I don't think there's much that gets worse than 06 or Boom or Forces. I don't think you can get worse than that. You can be slightly better, and you can be, you know, to a different degree, but I don't want to say that Secret Rings is on the same level as Forces or as Boom or as 06, because it's not. There is plenty of stuff to enjoy in Secret Rings, but again, the problem that you have is that when you can get a game that has a good story, good voice acting, good music, but you can't really play the game that you want to, you know, the way you want to play it, it's hard to go back to. Unfortunately for me, I love going back to this game because I grew up on this game. It was my first ever actual Sonic game I ever played, and to me it holds a special place in my heart. But unfortunately, being as unbiased as possible, I mean, I have to give Sonic and the Secret Rings like maybe a 6 out of 10 at best. So, yeah, the flame didn't go out, so I'm guessing I also still have to do Black Knight as well. Now, Sonic and the Black Knight took a couple years later after Secret Rings came out. Sega wanted to continue the Storybook series, supposedly rumored to end up being a trilogy, but unfortunately that third game never got made, probably due to the, you know, poor performance of Black Knight and Secret Rings. People didn't really want to keep playing these games, especially, I know I wouldn't if they were still on the Wii. But Black Knight fixes a lot of the problems that are in Secret Rings. Sonic and the Black Knight begins with Sonic getting transported to the world of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Sonic is transported there by a wizard named Merlina. She claims to be the granddaughter of the great wizard Merlin. She explains to Sonic that King Arthur has turned, well, to the dark side almost. King Arthur is using the scabbard of Excalibur to make himself immortal. He's summoning legions of armies from the underworld, causing havoc among the town, and ruling over his kingdom with an iron fist. Not only that, but King Arthur is using his Knights of the Round Table to do his bidding, and the Knights don't seem to be fully on board with the plan at first, but they are loyal to their king. Sonic now joins on this new adventure to stop the king's rule and save the world again. Sonic is no longer on rails anymore, to an extent. And what I mean by that is now the player has full control over Sonic, where he can go, his directional base, he can go forward, back, side to side, all that fun stuff. But, again, it falls into the same issue that Secret Rings had in the linear gameplay. You're going from point A to point B with no real branching paths or any, any sense of exploring out, the stage that you play in. And not only that, you're just swinging your Wiimote around, killing enemies with a sword for waves and waves of enemies, hordes just getting by, getting in the way. Some people just jump over them just so they can get faster times, but you need to defeat enemies in order to get a higher score. When it comes to this gameplay, while I appreciate giving the player more control over Sonic, the gameplay for Black Knight, in my opinion, is a little more bland, if that makes any sense. The game itself looks great. I think that, for the art style they were going for, with the graphics at the time, I think it was, it's a good looking game. It's up there and looks just as good as Secret Rings does, in my opinion. A very, very similar art style to Secret Rings as well. And I think they match each other perfectly, in a sense. But the problem that Black Knight has, that Secret Rings didn't have as much, was waves and waves of enemies. You would be traveling along the path, and then enemies will come up in your way. You don't have to do anything that you have to, beat them, get out of your way, all that kind of stuff. In Secret Rings, it was simple. You just hit them with a homing attack and you're good to go. In Black Knight, you have to use a sword. Now, the problem with the sword gameplay is that you would probably expect there to be, if you swing your sword a certain way, it will, swing that way. Not necessarily. Sonic kind of just swings the sword. There are certain inputs that you can do to do certain things, but nobody's doing that. That's the thing. And again, it can only be so fun just going around and looking like, this the whole time. I mean, that's not fun. I mean, and neither is just kind of sitting there pressing a few buttons, shaking the Wiimote or anything like that. And again, it's interactive, but again, that can be tiring at times, especially if you're going through a long gaming session. The problem was the Wii, the motion controls. That was the biggest downside of having these games be on that console. The Wii was meant to get players to be more active while playing video games, but again, you can only be so active while playing video games in the first place. And when you try to build a game and then try to build it around motion controls, you're going to have, problems. You're going to have issues. You're going to have all of these things that get in the way of making the game actually fun itself. And I think that's the biggest downside that both games have, is that they were limited by being motion controlled games. Now, let's get on to, before it makes me sound like I hate this game more than Secret Rings, I don't hate it, but when it comes to the two, I definitely have a preference which one I would rather play. But that's not to say there aren't things that are enjoyable about Black Knight. I think, again, Black Knight has a really good story. I think Black Knight has one of the best stories in the 2010s Sonic games, or the early 2000s Sonic games, I guess. Because it was right before, the voice actors got changed again, and it went to a brand new writing team and all that kind of stuff. I think Sonic and the Black Knight right next to Sonic Unleashed is one of the better stories in the entire franchise. And it's sad to say that it was Jason Griffith's last performance as the character. And I think it is his best performance as Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh, I get it. No problem. I'm used to stuff like this. Guess I can't be the hero every time. I play by my own rules. Remember that. Isn't there more to being a knight than just serving a king? I'm Sonic. Sonic the Hedgehog. I have no master, except the wind that blows free.
No, Sonic! There is no point in continuing! A knight never flees his foe, right? It was never about chivalry for me. I just gotta do what I've gotta do. That's all.
Merlina, every world has its end. I know that's kind of sad, but that's why we gotta live life to the fullest in the time we have. At least, that's what I figure.
So in my opinion, yes, the story and the voice acting is just as good, if not some of the best in that time era for those characters and that voice cast and all that. I think that when it comes to the music and how much I love Crush 40, and I love that, you know, they're getting the recognition that they deserve for the franchise, Crush 40 actually does a decent amount of the soundtrack for Black Knight. Just take a listen. Really good, but the cutscenes have also been improved from the previous game. Not only have they gone from page to page, they've actually added animation into the actual pages itself. A real step up from the last game. Some of these cutscenes are even better than some of the cutscenes in Secret Rings. Now, again, when it comes to just these games, again, you have so many good things that are in there. You have great characters, you have great voice acting, you have good music. The cutscenes are really good. The concept alone, I mean, Sonic being thrown into these mystical, magical worlds, I mean, that's interesting, that's fun, that is fun. But unfortunately, the gameplay shoots itself in the foot. Now, you could probably go online and you could find speedruns for all these levels, and that's because people dedicate, you know, their time and effort into that. Especially if they're doing it on native hardware with the Wii. I mean, emulators alone and all that kind of stuff. You can find enjoyability, but you have to put the effort into it. And I think that's where a lot of people, you know, get turned off, is because if the gameplay's not fun, why would I keep playing it? But I think a lot of people are missing out on what makes these games so special. And I think what makes them so special is some of just the dedication that the team had when it came to making a good story and a good looking sounding game. But unfortunately, when it came to the controls, I think the biggest problem these games have is that they're on the Wii. I think if these games weren't on the Wii, they could probably be up there. And as much as, you know, I have such a soft spot for these games, I love these games, they practically raised me, I'm not blind to nostalgia. I know that there's problems, but when it comes to that, I mean, I just have to say, Sonic and the Black Knight gets maybe like a 4 out of 10. And I hate to give those scores because, again, I mean, these games, I grew up on them. They practically raised me. I mean, I remember playing these for hours and hours on end. And, you know, at the time, you know, I really loved these games. And I still love playing them to this day. But I'm not blind to nostalgia. And I'm not blind to, you know, issues that, you know, cause games to not be enjoyable. Unfortunately, the game itself, the gameplay, nothing else. The gameplay itself is bad. But everything else, I think there's something we overlooked. So I encourage you to actually go back and actually play these games. I encourage you to go and look for some of the things that we might have missed over the years. And you might be shocked, because I think that you guys might end up agreeing with some of the things I said in this video. Because I think that there is something there. I think, you know, and that might be the nostalgia talking for me, but it's still important to realize what these games did for the franchise. Because, I mean, if we never, you know, got these games, we would have never gotten better games like Colors or Generations or Frontiers. We would have never gotten those games. Sonic has been in such a very interesting place for a long time, and I think Sega's finally understanding, you know, where he needs to go, what he needs to do to move forward, and I believe that Sega and Sonic Team are up to something big. But when it comes to these games, they were just 2 little missteps on the way to greatness. But if I'm completely unbiased, I would say that these games are probably like 8 or 9s. But again, that's my completely biased opinion and nostalgia talking. You know, maybe it was a good thing I talked about these games. You know, over the years, just kind of dealing with, you know, everything. They were good escapes to go to. Every time I would just want to not worry about the world around me, I would just remember putting Secret Rings into the disk drive of the Wii and just playing it until I got bored, which was not fast. I kept playing and playing and playing and just enjoying the moment that I had with these games. So I have a lot to thank for them. Hey.
Wow, man. Can't believe you actually did it.
It wasn't easy. I mean, talking about these games brought up a lot of memories and a lot of, you know, things that, you know, I took for granted back in the day, and I'm so happy that, you know, I can finally get off my chest.
Congratulations.
3 years may have took a while, but I'm glad we got it done.
I was pretty sure your soul was mine. Well, as promised.
Yeah, thank God.
Next year, we'll see. Bye.
Bye. Sonic Colors review in 2030.